And I think they've missed a trick that actually hybrid is the key to unlocking the culture in your organization. It's treating people like adults. People feel like they're part of something and maybe want to give that little bit extra when they come to work.
It's important to treat people like adults. It's important that you also have trust within your own teams, and people managers are also doing the same thing, that people are matured enough to understand when they want to be at office and when they don't have to be at office, right? And I strongly believe that companies who are very open and they are flexible, they are keeping it open to people. That's where the real gain of trust is also coming both ways, right?
The commute time that it takes, especially in India, to get to the office, and that could be better spent doing personal stuff or work stuff.
I think here the key is, what is the kind of a task that you're expecting employees to be in office? So you're not coming into the office to take a call. So that obviously you can do it at home. But when you want to develop some program where you need to collaborate and you need to meet and you need to brainstorm, that is when you need to be in office. It's basically the brainstorming. You work together to get one outcome.
Okay, welcome to the 5th episode of the OMG podcast. I have another couple of fantastic guests that have traveled in to be with us this afternoon. Gentlemen, thank you much for taking the time to visit us here at the Centrix office this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, great to see you. And today we'd like to talk about what the future of workspace is, especially around flexible working, co-working, right-sizing, portfolios, and everything in between. And I'm really looking forward to getting some of your fantastic insights. So what would you say would be one financial move that you could do that would save millions without really killing the culture of your organizations?
So, I would say that it all boils down to, the right sizing of the space. That's one perspective. Consolidation is, of course, something that is very high on organizations these days, but at the same time, how the workplace is evolving right now, where it shapes, it's actually, very important to understand the metrics that, how much employees are going to come to office, what's the footfall, what's the likelihood of people, coming to work over the next 3 to 5 years, because, these decisions at times can be very strategic in nature. So I would say that, consolidation at the right scale, is the tip of the iceberg that, people would want to see.
And is there any technology that you're using to help you figure out from your portfolio which are some of the more highly functioning facilities that cost less and which are the underperforming assets that you might want to carve off?
See, of course, data is a lot, driving our insights into our portfolios. So we look at, typically very simplified data can be, what's your normal occupancy levels during the various, days of the week. That can be one metric. Then there are smart sensors also getting installed, to see that even when people are there, how much time they're actually spending on desks. So that kind of makes the office design a bit more evolving, that how much of fixed workstations versus, agile spaces and things can be actually designed. I would say that not one office can be, suited fit for every kind of, space or region which is there. So we kind of, have a certain balanced out standard. And then we try to niche or carve out, what that particular region should suit, that kind of function.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something which we are looking at.
Okay, so you really are using data to inform your
Of course, that's very important, from the bat swipe data to just to see smart sensors, cameras, it's data is everywhere. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and just on the smart sensors, are you using like heat sensors or vibration, or is it like the cameras that are taking pictures?
No. So one is, of course, the sensor which is easily placed below the workstation desk. So that really kind of records what is the occupancy and how much time that workplace is getting utilized. So you actually get to know that data as well. So yeah.
I suppose that also helps. There's two ways of calling it, either beach toweling or signs of life, because sometimes people come in and just put all their stuff in a workstation and then go off and work in other places, but they want to know that desk is there. But I suppose if you have those under desk sensors, it guarantees that
that's there. Plus we are also encouraging people to book desks. So there's a desk booking system also in place. Which means that We are trying to be more agile as much as possible. It's just people can come and use any kind of desk, what they want to suit their, that particular day or, those particular set of meetings. So, and we have seen that, people are leveraging it. Initially, of course, it's a bit of a, change management that people have to see that, they have to book a desk and, they have to see, because more often than not, people are used to coming to the same single desk and, keeping their stuff there. So that's something we are trying to change.
Yeah. And do you mind me inquiring, sorry, Rajesh, I'm going to get to you in a second, sir. Do you mind me inquiring about what your average utilization is in your office, if you're able to tell me, of course?
So I would say it totally depends,
On the facility.
right?
Yeah.
On the day of the week and, some critical months also, right? So I would say Mondays to Wednesdays, typically the footfall will be on a higher side, 60 to 80% also, Thursdays, Fridays can be a bit lean, but totally depends on the I would say the months as well.
So like this
some
would have been
months
a
will be-
quiet week, right? Because of the divide.
Yeah. This week would have been quiet, after mid of December, it'll generally be much more, quieter, because the majority of the teams will start, going on leaves and so on and so forth. But typically, I would say that it will range between 60 to 70%. Yeah.
Rajesh, anything that you'd like to add, sir?
See, we have been, moving away from, the fixed desks kind of a system around post the COVID. So during the COVID, people are all working from home, and that's the opportunity we took to transform all the workplaces. What we did was we moved away. We created the collabs kind of a space. We created different kinds of workspace for different kinds of work they do. And that was the time when we drove the change management across the organization. And so we cut down the number of seats also. So we didn't mandate people to come back to office on an everyday basis. But what happened was, people started coming less and less to the office. So we had to change that just recently. But we took the opportunity during that lean period when people were not coming into office to transform all the workplaces. And post that, we introduced the desk reservation system. So people had to book their desk and come into the office. And this took a while. So what happened was, the people we were finding it difficult for people to adapt to this new change. And recently, we engaged with our global leadership team. They revised the mandate. So now we are back to, working 2 to 3 days a week. So that global mandate has come. And it is a proven thing that, people cannot be always working in remote, and they will not be able to achieve the required results. So now they're all coming back 2 to 3 days a week, and they're going to be coming back. It's going to be effective from November. Now, we are very aggressively pushing for the desk reservation system to be coming in. And what we found is, about 15 to 20% of the people are actually reserving the desk and coming in. So when we start mandating, and that's when the changes will come in. And the kind of tools we use is, the badge data. So we use the badge data to understand how they're commuting to the office. And we see that there's a particular pattern where people are more coming in between Tuesday to Wednesday. And what we also observed is they come 2 days to office, and then, Thursday they leave the town. So they're not available in the town. So when we, do this system of, making people available between Monday to Friday, and, they have to shift their working pattern between those 5 days. So it means that they will have to be available in the base station at least 5 days a week. So, this enables people to be, working from the location, work together, and, when they're required, they'll be in the office, and those kind of collaborations can basically happen.
So on the subject of cost optimization, right-sizing the portfolio, reducing redundant real estate assets, I think it's still important to meet people where they're at. Otherwise, you're going to lose some top talent when you close a facility, right? Because of proximity and commute time to a different region. And we saw a lot of that during COVID. And there was this term that came out called hub and spoke. So you consolidated, so you had that HQ, and then you had these smaller satellite offices. And that went hand in glove with the kind of flexible co-working model at the same time, which of course, as you know, is you just renting space from a provider and your people can go and use that. So are you guys leveraging any of those options in your organizations right now, whether it be the satellite offices as part of the hub and spoke model or the flexible or co-working offices as
we do? We have a concept called as a core hub, which we'll have 70 to 80% available in that office, and then you will have, so for example, Bangalore is a core hub for us, and then as the remaining cities are all, you can call it as a satellite portfolios, where we have some portions of it. It's like Chennai, maybe Gurgaon, some in Mumbai, and then we spread it out further into, say, Ahmedabad, in Kolkata, and Lucknow. We had an office we just closed on because the number of people are very low. So that's the kind of a hub and spoke model that we have. So we have a core hub where all the people, leaderships, all are there, and that's where you'll have and you need people to be in the core hub to actually do the right kind of innovation, have that kind of a culture in the organization. And innovation, it's going to be difficult for people to do innovative work in silos, in isolation. They need to be in the core hub, working with all the support and other functions. So only when you do a proper and you have that cohesive collaboration between various groups, supports and everything, you can get the right kind of environment.
Mm-hmm. Anything you'd like to add?
I think same stuff we are also doing, but what we are doing is that wherever there is a very small hub or going to a tier 2 town, which he just mentioned, we will either go with a flex office provider, because that makes it very simple and easy for us to low maintenance, and the cost of ownership is not there, the real estate is not lying with us, so there is flexibility in terms of the space that we have. So yeah,
it's a bit more expensive on the cost per square foot though, as I understand.
Yeah, but then
you've got people as part of that, the front of house from the provider, as well as your own employees in there.
Exactly, but then the sizing is less comparatively to your core hub office. That's where fairly less, 25-50 seats, so on and so forth. So that really eases out the equation. Because one part is also there that if you are taking your own space, the fitting out cost is also there, which again we will offset, right? So that's something which is a big win for us. And when times are volatile, every organization is thinking whether they really want to spend that money or not.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting that you're both kind of adopting to these more flexible models, but one is taking a hub and spoke, one is kind of entertaining that more flexible.
But there's one more criteria. There's one more criteria here where, when we are looking at an office space, we look at the tenure, at what is the horizon that we have, and then the sizing. How big is that thing? So it's, this flexible model works good for a very short, maybe 15-20 seaters kind of an office. But once it crosses a particular threshold, then the ROI, return on investment, for whatever office we set up is somewhere between the 4th and the 5th year. If we have a horizon beyond the 5th and 6th year, and then we might look at setting up an own office. So we have a mix. So when we say hub and a spoke, it's not that the spokes are always in the flexible office space. Some of them on flexible office, but some of them are own office. For example, in Mumbai, we have a 4,000 square feet, but it's a state-of-art office, because we get in industry leaders to come in and have a look at some of our products and solutions. It's only the country leadership is based in that office and few people, and it's a showcase kind of an office. So we have a similar kind of an office in Delhi and Gurgaon. And the hub in Econ, it's the mass. So we have the maximum 70 to 80% of the employee base is here. So that's where the entire transactions and the volume of the work is getting done. So that is the definition of hub for us.
I think it's really interesting because Cushman and Wakefield have noticed that this year there's 80 million square feet of real estate dedicated to this flex market, and they expect that to grow to 100 million, another 20 by next year. So there really is a bigger demand than I ever thought possible that's actually happening in the India market. We seem to be wanting to support people wherever they choose to work. I think it's interesting because you mentioned something around culture, And it's difficult to instill the culture of an organization whilst employees are working from home. But I think on the other side, there is this misnomer that you can only instill culture if employees are working 100% in the office all the time. And that's actually not the case. So they've discovered in research by the Future Foundation that actually organizations that embrace hybrid basically treat their employees like adults, actually have a 59% greater impression of the company culture than those that are working fully in office or fully remote. Because that's the biggest thing, isn't it? When people say, "Oh, I can't do hybrid because how am I going to get the culture across to my organization?" And I think they've missed a trick, that actually hybrid is the key to unlocking the culture in your organization. Is treating people like adults. People feel like they're part of something and maybe want to give that little bit extra when they come to work.
Totally agree. And, it's important to treat people like adults, like you rightly said. And, it's important that you also have trust within your own teams, and, same people managers are also doing the same thing, that, people are matured enough to understand when they want to be at office and, when they don't have to be at office, right? So, and there will always be some tasks which is, more engaging with the team, sitting down together, brainstorming in one room physically. That makes more sense. So I strongly believe that, companies who are very open and, they are flexible, they are not, kind of demanding that only Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or, Thursdays, Saturdays, whatever, they are keeping it open to people. That's where the real gain of trust is also coming both ways, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, you hear countless examples, especially of international companies that have enforced an RTO, return to office, and their employees have just sat there on calls that they could have done at home. And they've lost that commute time. The commute time that it takes, especially in India, it takes a good long time to get to the office, and that could be better spent, doing personal stuff or work stuff, whichever employee prefers to do.
I think here the key is, what is the kind of a task that you're expecting employees to be in office? So you're not coming into office to take a call. So that's obviously you can do it at home. But when you want to develop some program where you need to collaborate and you need to meet and you need to,
that's it.
You need to brainstorm. That is when you need to be in office and you need to get all the people in office. It's basically the brainstorming. You work together to get one outcome. That is where you do. But there are certain tasks which need to be. So, for example, a banking industry, which is dealing with credit card information and those things, they would rather prefer employees to be in the access controlled space, because they will not have any control over what the employee is doing while working at his home. And in a restricted means it's even physically and logically restricted, because the network will restrict them from accessing any other site when they're in office. So the kind of transactions they do, sometimes it's in millions, and you add 1 0 to that, it's gone. Instead of 1 million, so for $400,000, you pay 4 million. So those kind of errors can happen. So it depends on the kind of task. If you're going to do those kind of very critical banking kind of a task, better to get employees working within that controlled environment. And if they're going to be doing kind of a flexible task, which, they can do they don't need people to be around them, give them flexibility. So it should be open to all the fonts, not having one formula.
Yeah. And how, HP, do you go about assessing the cultural impact of workplace or change programs that you're engaged in?
So again here, what we do is basically we look at the employee profile and their role profile. Because when we deal with a large organization like where I am currently working with, and even my previous organizations, we have different employee profiles who are we used to have some factory workers, we would have some people who would contact centers or call centers, we would have R&D professionals, and then you would have a kind of marketing and sales. Each of them will have a different work profile requirements in the workplace, and the cultures also will be different there. A sales office will be completely different. They need a lot more of meeting rooms. They will need, and they will need a lot more of open spaces around. So that's a kind of a thing. And
I get that they're different by department, but then there's generally a through line culture of the architecture of the organization. So do you use any tools or surveys, such as like Gallup as an example, to kind of figure out where the culture currently resides in that office?
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So the culture, basically, when you say that, the trust, which, when they want to connect employees to the brand, that is when, you build a common thread across. So it is not the workplace and other things. So it's a common thread is basically you connect people with the brand, and you try and associate people with the brand. So that is where, you build that common thread line across the organization. So they should be reminded of that particular thing.
And Nishant, are you using any tools or tech to measure culture in the
so,
business?
See, the thing is, these days, what I see, every organization is having their own design playbook and, workplace playbook. So that's a tool in which you enter the area and some metrics, and that will kind of, populate you with all the metrics of how many rooms should be there, workstation, cafeteria size, this and all that, right? And then based on that, every organization is also having a very typical, design detail and environment detail in terms of how the spaces should look like. Rather, so that kind of is the first step towards, to take the office to the next level.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we would also see that, what is the kind of user base that we are going to create there. If it's more of digital and tech, which means that they have to be at office most of the time, what you rightly mentioned with about salespeople, they are mostly, in our case, they are away, on sales pitches and so on and so forth. So there has to be a mix and balance of how do we treat offices. But essentially, we still want to, ensure that the fundamental culture still lies within the company's vision that we really have. So
I typically find that lots of organizations, when they're trying to assess their culture, HR send out like a survey via email, going, don't worry, it's completely anonymous, on culture, which is essentially assessing how well HR is doing their job.
Okay.
It's called experimenter bias in the academic world. I like to call it the fox guarding the hen house. So these kind of internal surveys to like do a pulse check on like how the business is doing, especially if it's marking the work of that department, I find it quite inappropriate in most times. So I always recommend just using an external company to come in and do it. They're good at what they do or whatever, and it's always independent and anonymous for sure in those instances. Especially now we have GDPR compliance that everybody really has to get on board with. So I always find that a little ironic when they say, "Yeah, no, we know what our culture is. It's 100% HR." They send out a survey, and I was like, okay, I would question some of those results. But let's say for a second that the CEO approached you. So I'll take this individually first, and I'll address it to you. Let's say the CEO approached you and said, we need to cut costs by 25%, but I would like you to keep engagement levels the same with the employees. What would be the first three things that you would do to cut costs that wouldn't affect engagement?
See, you need to be, the design has to be very, very creative. So one way to do is, you can find a replacement where the material and the input cost is going to be low while you still try to achieve this. For example, I give you, if you're doing an interior design, you can replace some expensive material with some artwork which is localized. So you try to find kind of an equivalent replacement. So you don't want to be reducing the experience of an employee. So when you get a cost reduction, so first thing will be try to find an equivalent replacement at a lower cost. Second will be to eliminate waste. And third will be to find out where you can actually improve your operational efficiency. Whatever efficiencies that you're working with, try and find out where you can use tech, you can use data driven, use whatever metrics you want, but try and improve your efficiency. So see that if a combined effect, you can reduce the cost, because this three is internal to your actions and not something which will be seen to the customers or our employees.
Yeah.
I
like the fact that you called your employees your customers.
Mm-hmm.
That's the right way of looking at it. Please.
So, in this case, one word always comes to my mind, which is frugality. So I always believe that we should be very frugal in our approach, whatever we are doing in terms of setting up workplaces, or because most of the times we always sometimes get biased seeing multiple different kind of workspaces. Some are which are very flamboyant and so on and so forth. So not everything but fit the bill to your space. So if somebody comes and asks me that if you have to cut the cost, so few things, one would be setting up the right workplace with the right kind of specs, that the first level of getting the your capex level very sorted. Secondly would be if there is a way to consolidate some of the your workplaces into one single workplace, which means more operational efficiency coming into the mix, and so on and so forth. Then what was rightly mentioned, how do you leverage tech? So just to ensure that your direct external manpower cost, which is say like some of your external finance people, your IFM resources, and so on and so forth, those can be optimized as much as possible. So that and then you see your cash flow in the long term scenario, and you see how do you position yourself. So one will be your real estate cost, which means your fixed transactional rental cost. How do you control your capex? And then thirdly will be how do you control your daily expenditure, your operational cost. If all three you can optimize a bit, if not 20%, you will still reach about 5% each. So 15% in total. Yeah.
Okay. We're very close to getting into the 7 rapid fire questions, gents, which I'd like you to answer in just one sentence if you can. But before we get to that, I'd like to ask you another bonus question, which is, have you visited any offices recently that you particularly admire? And if so, would you mind telling me who they are so I can go and check them out?
I like the office of Apple, the
Here in India?
in India, in Bangalore. I like that office. But what I didn't kind of like was, they were designed on the cafeteria. This cafeteria space is about 40% of their total space. But the way they designed the campus and the office workspace, it provided an ideal environment for people to work together as well as work in silos. So they have different kind of workplaces around the whole campus.
Okay. Thank you, Rajesh. I'll write that down. Nishant, where else am I going?
So just a floor above where our new office is coming up, you have the office for McKinsey, which is just recently, I think 10 days back or 15 days back, inaugurated. Nice, plush, but what sets it very different is that once you enter, you're a very large water body. Once you enter the water body, the water is flowing. It's a bit of, instills a bit of calmness around also, and then normally you don't see such a huge water body, once you enter into a space. So that was like very different. And, they have like very curated pieces of artwork, which is, installed around the office, which is like very bespoke. And normally you don't really find it, like you have your wallpapers or artworks and so on and so forth, but this is something which is very, very, very bespoke. So this is kind of giving a different kind of flavor, right? All together we are working, and then you are seeing that people who are there at the reception, the water body flowing here, have a very serene sound of that water flowing across you. So very, very different kind of a stuff which we normally don't see. So yeah, I really like that office.
I can see just by how your face and energy shifts when you were describing it to me. So hats off to McKinsey and Apple for a good job here locally in India with your design and office. All right, now into the rapid fire questions as we draw towards the end of this interview, gentlemen. We have 7. The first one is, and I'll start over here. Where in the office do you do your best thinking? If you could just tell me in one sentence.
It will be my regular workplace only. That's the place where the best thinking spot happens. And because in any other spot we go, it's basically to sit and collaborate with cross functional teams. And when I'm in my desk, so it's usually the place where I sit down and think through what I need to be doing next and what I need to be doing for the week and ahead.
So at your workstation, essentially.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I would say I would use a focus pod.
A focus pod.
Focus pod. I close it, shut it out, focus on the work at hand.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, they've really skyrocketed since COVID, haven't they? The application of these flexible pods that can be moved around across the floor plate, they are just going through the roof. All right, second question. Are you a chai, coffee, tea, or other beverage kind of person?
I'm a chai guy.
Chai guy. I like it.
Coffee.
Coffee. In the morning, all throughout the day?
In the morning.
Just in the morning?
That's the first thing which I enter, and then I take.
Yeah, because your watch starts telling you're having heart palpitations when you start drinking after midday.
It's part of the routine, that's way.
Yeah.
You take your cup, you take your mug, and then you start,
That's right.
settling your day. So.
Yeah. So what is one workplace habit that you wish people would drop, which they would stop doing?
Use the space for the right purpose. For example, some people go into the meeting rooms and use it as a personalized space. So that is something that I would want people to avoid. You use each of the places for the purpose it has been designed. A meeting room is for a group to meet, a team to meet, at least 2, 3, or 4 people, not for an individual to go and take a call.
Yeah.
You want an individual to go and take a call, please go into a focus pod or anything else. So that is something that I would want people to stop.
Nishant?
I would say that, stop making flexible offices your own personal, which means that putting up your belongings, your family pictures and all. That's something, I feel that people should be matured enough that if you're working in a very flexible environment, people should not be, making that.
You're not the first one to say that on this series. If you could redesign one thing in your current office, what would it be?
It will be the flow in which you would want to be walking through the space from the beginning. The reception should ideally have the visitor's place, and then you move into showcasing some of your company's which may be heritage and maybe something, and then you move into some space where you can work, and then you should go into your workplace. So you should have a natural flow progression when you're going into your workplace. So maybe you want to pick up a coffee, so it should all come in that kind of a sequence, and that's how I would ideally foresee my future office to be.
Okay.
Because some of my office currently maybe they're designed 20 years ago, though we did a retrofit, we did a redesign, we did this, but you can do only to a certain extent, which is 20-year-old.
I would say the cafeteria. Make it more fun, make it more interesting, have more kiosk, more food options, for people to really enjoy.
Nice.
Make the cafeteria like, more like a lounge and a bistro kind of a stuff, so that people can sit, work, and still have, multiple different cuisines. So, yeah.
Love that. Music while you work, yes or no?
No.
No. No. Oof. I haven't had 2 speakers yet say both no's. That's interesting. Okay. Are you hybrid, fully % in office, or fully % remote?
I'm a hybrid. 60-40. 60 in the office, 40 is maybe remote.
Okay.
Exactly same. 60-40. Yeah, it's nailed it. So. But then apart from that, when I'm traveling, so yeah.
Yeah, of course. There's always exceptions. What's the smallest design detail in the office that brings the biggest difference to you?
Is the design beyond your regular workplace, how you design the green spaces around your office. So how do you mix the color scheme? So it should not be too vibrant, it should not be too sober, and maybe how you bend the biophilics around that thing. So that's the key differentiator to make the space really vibrant and energetic.
I always believe that every detail matters. For me, every particular detail, joint, every elevation, I actually look at all the drawings, samples, reviews, just to ensure that every color is playing around nicely, so the details are on point. That's something which is very important to me. So yeah.
Okay. And one final question: is there anything you'd wish I'd asked you during this interview?
Probably what I would have thought, what brought you to this particular place? Means, what was your journey in this? What did you see in your journey from the time you started working to where you are today? Probably that was one, maybe a question where I was thinking it was in my mind that you would definitely ask.
So what's the answer?
Interesting. See, I think, we should go right.
Origin story.
Yes. So basically, if you look at how we as a corporate real estate, from where we evolved, if you look at, we go back to maybe 80s, when the IT industry started off in the very nascent space. So there was, 50, 100 people in an office. So those kind of a small offices. And then slowly evolved, 50 became 100, became 200 and 300. So it started growing. IT as a services actually took off maybe in the early 90s or maybe late 80s and early 90s. But till the time, IT was not considered as a service. It was considered as a commodity where you just install in the system and then you make it run. IT as a service was never a concept. And the moment that concept came in, and that is when, the IT started rapidly taking off. So by the time it was late 90s, we started seeing the large tech companies, campuses, and those kind of stuff. And that is where, they started looking for, professionals to manage the campus and maybe the workplace and other things. So where do you get them? So then they got them out from the industry before IT. So it was the factories. So the people who are managing the factory workplace and those guys, maintenance team, and those guys actually migrate. They are the first generation facility management kind of professionals. But then there was a gap because this is not a factory here. The kind of people whom we hired was much different. The kind of roles, kind of jobs they're doing is different. And the kind of environment they need was completely different. So then again, this role had to evolve. So it started evolving, and that's when, how it evolved into corporate real estate. So this is an end-to-end. FM facility management continues to be, I would say, a subset of the corporate real estate, while the corporate real estate takes care of, end-to-end, right from, creation of asset to, disposition of asset, and focused on the business. So corporate real estate will work with the business, understand the long-term goals, and work with the business to develop a long-term real estate strategy for the company. So this is how the corporate real estate journey began, and the role started slightly shifting, and FM continues to be part of that role. So I think that is how many of us who are there in corporate real estate, we came up. So my journey also started from an industry, from a manufacturing factory, to where I am today.
Wonderful. Thank you. Gentlemen, that brings us nicely to time. So thank you very much for your input.
Thank you.
Some valued insights and research we discussed. So again, really appreciate you making the journey to come and see us here at Centrix.